Let's see. Didn't take as long as I thought it would. So we've been working on the water stuff today. So far we've got some basic water motion. It's not super amazing, but it's something in there. And we solved some problems with it. And I don't think the water motion stuff would work like this very well if you were like standing on the shore and you were looking at it and you'd be like, what the hell is this crap? But if you're just kind of running by and all that, as we will be in this game with the long field of view, and that's in the background, yeah, you know, it'll look fine. And any like straight water that's coming on towards us and everything that like might come into the foreground, that's something else, you know, like we can spend some more time on those pieces of water. And we can also make them not like, you know, have frickin' S-curves and bullshit. So they'll be a lot simpler to deal with. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we want to do some shore ripple effect stuff. So how are we going to do that? So that's like these. We'll need these standing shore ripples. So I'm thinking we want like a distance from shore. We want to... like these ripples, I guess there's two. Like, I mean, I'm just looking at the concept art that has been provided to me. And based on the concept art, it looks like there's like a number of ripples on edges of stuff. So how would we figure it out? I guess we'd have like a number of ripples, we'd have a distance, and maybe like an opacity sort of thing. And then we need a color. I'll need to write this down. Okay, so we need a distance from shore. We need a color for ripples. So we'll need an opacity overall for the effect, so we can turn it on and off and stuff like that. We need a number of ripples, and I think like a width maybe is something we want there. So the other thing is, if we're panning a texture or something else to kind of have some noise that comes, what direction are we going to pan? I guess we'd want to pan in the direction of it. So like, direction, is this local or global? So we kind of mess with that sort of stuff. So let's figure this out. So inside of our material, we're going to want, this will be water motion. Alright, we're going to need like our water color. Over here, I'll kind of reorganize this a little bit so it's more broken up into effects. So we've got our watercolor. Alright, so what we're going to want is, let's see, how are we going to do a number of ripples? So we'll turn that off, the direction stuff off for a little bit. Alright, so for ripples, we are, actually I'll just leave that on for now. Let's see. So we got our distance texture, that's what we're going to need, so let's snag that, throw it up here. We're going to need that texture for sure. So we'll get our texture sample of this thing, snag that in there. So we have our texture coordinates. So what do we want? It's going to be from like 0 to 1 is going to be our value. So we're going to need like a range. So it's going to be like min and max. So we can't do loops, we can't do any of this other stuff. So if we're going to have a random number of ripples or whatever, we're going to have either, we'll have like a set number and be like, where should they be, or blah. So it's going to be something like, we're going to grab the red channel, and I guess it's an if statement. So like if the value is greater than minimum, alright, so you need to promote this to a parameter. So we're going to have like shore. Alright, so it'd be shore ripple distance. Let's just do one ripple to start with and see what kind of machinery we need in place. So if we are greater than this, right, if we're less, it's going to be 0. If we're greater than, it's going to be 1. Okay. Because we have to do stuff to get this to work properly. Okay, and we need to know like the ripple width or something along those lines. Maybe we should use a remap function. Like we've got this remap, so it'd be like this distance right here. So the low value, no, we'll use a remap after we're finished. Okay, so we'll get shore ripple distance. It's going to be shore ripple distance, and we will add to that the shore ripple width. And we'll plug that in for B. So we will pass in the R channel if we are greater than this. Okay, so that's what we want to do. So if we are greater than the shore ripple distance passed through the R channel. So it's either going to be 0 or it's going to not be anything. So we're going to say if we are we need to do this otherwise. It needs to be if we need to do both zeros. Okay, so like so it's going to be if we are less than the minimum, greater than maximum. Alright, so less than minimum. We are greater than maximum. Then what we're going to do is we need to then remap. This value here is going to be this. The low value should be, we're going to remap this space from 0 to 1, I believe. So the low value should be I guess we do want to remap it. So the low is this. The high is, well, okay. How the remap function works is I need to pass in like 0 and 1. Does it have a default? No, I guess not. So we'll say, okay, so it goes from 0 to 1. Oh, okay, I got it backwards. I hit it right the first time. Alright, so the low one is going to be this, and the high one is going to be this. So it's basically going to say, like, go from, you know, like 0.1, shore ripple distance is going to be 0.1, and shore ripple distance width, let's just do like 0.3. We'll remap that between 0 and 1. And let's go ahead and draw that. So here is our shore distance based on what we just calculated. And that's going from 0 to 1. Alright, so we're going to need a shore ripple color. Let's see, what's a good shore ripple color? Something bright. Something that we can see. Alright, so we're going to multiply this by that. No, this is not one of these. We want to do another lerp thing here. So we're going to say this color needs to go in like this. And this value needs to go all the way down to base color. So let's have a reroute node at the bottom here. I'm really glad we have reroute nodes. And I can just drag this off. Throw it in there. That looks extremely odd. And these should just all be zeros, so they should be all rough, all this other color. What? Obviously something's wrong with our math here, where maybe something's going lower than 0 or higher than something. Yeah, if we do a clamp, we see what we're expecting to see. So if we're looking at the world right now, it looks like this. We've got our standing ripple thing. You know, it looks like trash, but we're just looking at where it's getting drawn in to start with. Gosh. So how do we want ripples to work? Like we'd want, I mean, we can do like a standing thing. We could have something that like approaches the shore over time. So how would we do an approach shore over time? We would have the minimum distance change based on like a sine curve or something. I'll just mess around and see what that looks like. So we'll have a time, we'll have a shore ripple speed. I don't know. Multiply those together. And I'm going off in the weeds. I just want to screw around and see what this looks like. So what we want to do is we want to then take what? We want a sine curve. It's going to be the sine of the value in radians, most commonly used. This value will cycle back and forth between -1 and 1. The difference between this and the output of the cosine expression is the output waveform is opposite half the period. Alright, so I have a sine wave here, and we're going to have a shore ripple distance width. It goes from -1 to 1. So what we want to do is we want a shore ripple distance, shore ripple what's a good this is always one of the hardest things about programming, is coming up with good names for things. What the hell is this variable? This is the ripple motion distance. I mean, it's such a big stupid name, but yeah, we'll put it at like 0.1 or whatever, and we just multiply that together. So that's going to go from negative to positive and all that. And we just add that to the distance, which will the distance needs to come out and in. Alright, yeah, it's so if we add this in, it's going to be add this to here. Alright, so add those two together and all that. So we've got our distance. Our remap is going to go from this ripple distance to blah, which is not true. We want to go to here. So it's definitely moving it, but we want it to like fade out as it moves in. I think that's what we need. Alright, so we need like a comment here and be like, so in order to do that, we need to turn this into a percent or something like that. We need to multiply it by something. So we have like our sine value here, which is going to go from -1 to 1. So we want to take this and we want to add 1 to it, and then we're going to multiply by 0.5. So now it's going to go from 0 to 1. And I guess we do 1 minus this. And then we have like some sort of opacity here. It's going the other way. Nah, I need to do a little bit different thing. I need it to go from like 0 to 1, but then I need it to not go back towards 0. It needs to end. It needs to go from 0 to 1. And then fade out without moving stuff. It's a little bit more complicated, isn't it? It should go from 0 to 1. So as the motion goes from 0 to 1, from -1 to 1, this thing needs to go from 0 to 1 to 0. So as the motion goes from -1 to 1, this value needs to go start at 0, go to 1, and then go back to 0. So -1 to 1, so that means that we have to, if we add 1, it goes from 0 to 2. So -1 to 1, you can take it from 0 to 2, So we want to go to 0 to 1 to 0. Well, if we take it from -1 to 1, and we just multiply it, we multiply it by its sign, we take the absolute value. So for the absolute value, it goes from 1 to 0 to 1. So if we take the absolute value of this value, and then we do 1 minus the absolute value, then it's going to go from 0 to 1 to 0. So what we want to do is take the absolute value of this thing, do 1 minus this, and it'll look like that. I need to see what this looks like at a level. It's close. It's getting both sides of the waveform though, which we don't want. We only want it if it's positive. I mean, we only want it as it's going positive? It's not based on the value, it's based on the direction. So it's not like a value thing we can look at. It's a directional thing. So we basically need to cancel this out if it's on half of the circle. It's like if the cosine is negative or some shit. Like it's something like that. So if the cosine is greater than 0, something like this. So this should just exit all out, so we should never see it. So this value here, we get it to be a 1. So that gives us waves that recede from shore. Yeah, they're always receding. So we need to swap those around. So if we're looking at it in the level, it looks like this. Thank you for following Michael's artwork. I'm just messing around with water stuff and slowly trying to build kind of a toolbox of effects that we'll be using, and just trying to figure out how to do that. Because I've never worked on water before, so this is baby's first water shader, though maybe it's not for babies. It's for grown-ass men and women. I don't know what I'm doing. I might figure it out eventually. Alright, so let me think. We should probably have a minimum and maximum opacity for this thing. I wonder if we can take... I wonder what this would look like if we threw a little bit of noise inside of the time of it. Like maybe if we had some noise in the time, we could kind of, I don't know, we could get maybe some waves that look different. I don't know. Let's screw around with it a little bit. Let's see if we take the texture sample with Perlin noise on there, we throw it in there, and we take this time and we add to it based on that value. What does it do? I can't really see it very well. Well, it gives us a little bit of stuff here, but actually we may want the something else in here. What if we do something just boneheaded? Let's just multiply the x coordinate by the y coordinates and slot it in and add it. Just be like, what the hell is even going to happen there? Nothing. I guess this is going to go from 0 to 1, so this is a very small number. So that looks like this. Looks kind of odd. It's not quite. That's not really the effect that I'm looking for. What am I looking for? I'm looking for something that makes close things do the same things that are close to each other do the same thing. So like, you know, things that were close here would all work. So maybe it would be something like the distance from the center of the texture, maybe an expanding circle of time, or what? What would cause this effect of things close to each other? I mean, we could use a different noise texture or something like that. Can we use any of the other information we've got to help us out? Not really. We could use the flow stuff. Like we could use this, the alpha channel over here maybe. How does that actually look in a level? Doesn't actually look too bad. It's kind of following the shore, and then kind of the calm areas are doing it. It's just the calm areas are the wrong speed, so it'd be like the speed of this thing should be multiplied by this as well. Maybe instead of a multiply, we get an add. Or if we multiplied it by a smaller number. Maybe we shouldn't have the speed offset in there if we're gonna. Trying to think about what we can actually do here. Maybe there's some noise that we can bring in, and that would actually work with this texture. Maybe there's some sort of noise we already know about. I mean, the only thing I can think of is this flow field texture here has got some sort of noise on it which we could use for something. I mean, that's adding a very small bit, but there's a lot of zeros in there. I can't think of much else here. I think it might be that we need like the noise texture. So let's see what happens if we multiply this out by a large number. Maybe we could use world space? Oh, that's interesting. So we get this kind of effect on the shoreline if we just use some noise. Just like that. That's interesting, actually. So this is like a shore noise. Alright, this is maybe not an effect I was thinking. We can just have noise on the whole damn thing. Which would actually be interesting if we, instead of having a color, maybe that'd be like a refraction or a normal for the surface. Let's plug that into the normal and see what it does. It's just totally screwed. Well, it looks like the material stuff broke again. It's not loading. Alright, let's reopen it. See what thing is freaking out on me. Water purlin noise, text, same lighting, GUID, modifier, touch any property to fix the issue. What? You know, I really wish this material editor wouldn't just randomly freak out and die on me. That'd be pretty cool actually if that didn't happen.